What's happening, Fish and Friends, and welcome to another episode. Tonight we're going to be reviewing the new $59 reel from Lose, the Lose Classic Pro Speed Spool. As always with my reviews, you'll get an up-close look at all the features. I'll discuss how it compares to some similar reels on the market, and finally I'll go over my personal pros and cons from fishing this reel for the last few months and show how it performed on the water. So let's get a closer look at this and discuss the features. Okay, there it is, the Classic Pro. Now aesthetically it's pretty simple and I like that. Just black and gold, which I don't mind, go Hawks. A little bit of white on it, and these handles, actually I put those on afterwards, I'll take those off. We'll be talking about all these aftermarket handles in a different video. Okay, this reel currently only comes in a 7.5-to-1 retrieve ratio and a right or left-handed model like I have here. Now that does bring in 30 inches per turn, so for every one turn of the handle, you're bringing in 30 inches of line. This reel weighs 7 ounces, which is pretty reasonable for a reel in that price range, I feel. It's only got 4+1 bearings, as you can see there, a 5-bearing system. So your 4 bearings, then your anti-reverse bearing in there. This reel holds 110 yards of 12-pound line. Now, getting into the body of this reel, it is a full graphite frame and graphite side plate construction. The star drag on it is also graphite, but it does click when you rotate it. Now the graphite frame and side plates is nothing new. You'd expect to find that in a reel at this price category. Usually it's when you bump up to something like this, a reel in the $100 category. Say category, or a reel like this. Once you start bumping up to that $100 category, that's when you're going to start to find those aluminum frames. And I think those aluminum frame reels do have a distinct advantage, and we'll talk about that more. Back to this reel, it does have the upgraded 15-pound drag system on it. It does come stock with a 95mm handle, which is nice. Now this spool tension knob is aluminum, but no, unfortunately folks, it does not click. So if that's a deal breaker for you, I'm sorry. To me, it doesn't matter one way or another. I really don't care, but it is aluminum, which is nice. When you look at the brakes on this reel, they are very easy to operate. You can see the little dial there. It's just the simple turn it up for max, more brakes, turn it down for less, min brakes. To pop the non-handle side plate over here off, you just pull this little pin, rotate the side plate up, and you get in there very easy. Now that's something you don't normally need to do. You don't need to open this up, when you're out on the water, for cleaning, doing maintenance, that sort of stuff. But otherwise on the water, all the brakes are adjusted externally, so you don't even need to do that. Okay, so now that we've done the quick down and dirty on all the features, you can look those up online, but I do like to give them just in case somebody wants to come here for, kind of an all-inclusive review, you got them. But now let's compare this reel and some of the ins and outs of it to some other reels that you might find in this category or that you might compare it to. So how about when you compare this reel to the $59 Lose American Hero Speed Spool? Sure enough, I checked on the Lose website and it seems they have revamped that American Hero. And by golly, it's darn near the same reel as this one. The American Hero comes in a little bit heavier at 7.2 ounces and does have a couple different gear ratios. Again, this only comes in the 7.5-to-1. Says it right there, 7.5-to-1 option. The American Hero does hold a little bit more line, so it must have a slightly bigger spool at 120 yards of 12-pound compared to the 110 on this one. Drag, features, everything else seemed to be the same. So that was very interesting when I looked and researched that. Now, when I looked on Tackle Warehouse, I think they had the old specs for the American Hero reel. They differed from what I saw on the Lose website. So that's something if you are considering looking at it. I think they bumped up the drag on that. Maybe a couple other things. I know this does have the brass Hamai cut gears inside here. That was another thing they upgraded on there that I noticed on the website. So that might be something to consider if you're looking at an American Hero as well. So let's jump up to the 99 category and look at Lu's other new reel, the bright red Mach Smash SLP. Now, as you see on the screen, this reel does have an upgraded 7+1 bearing system, and it has the new textured combat grips and thumb bar. And if you're wondering what they look like, they are these right here. So these are off another Lose reel of mine that has these on it. They've got kind of some little raised bumps there, so you can see instead of being just a flat, kind of slick surface, they've added a little bit of texturing and bumps there that helps your thumbs down a little bit better. And I do like it. I do think it helps above this. I still like, the grips and things that give even a little bit more grip, but that's what they're referring to in that combat grip. Now, otherwise, when you compare everything else on this Classic Pro to that $99 Mach Smash, everything else is the same. Weight, gear ratio, capacity, graphite frame and side plates. Basically the same reel as this. Now, how does this reel compare to Lu's other $99 Baitcaster, the Lose Speed Spool LFS? Well, the biggest difference between this reel and this reel is the aluminum frame. Anytime you're really putting a lot of torque, and tension on a reel, whether you've got a lot of, heavier, high resistance lures, hard hook sets, and bringing stuff in, through a lot of muck, for example, frogging, you're smacking that fish as hard as you can with that hook set, and you're often bringing in 75.86 pounds of vegetation on a 1-pound bass. Pulling in all that vegetation on a reel can definitely put some stress on it. Now, some folks like to go even a step further and only use reels that have an aluminum handle side plate. That way you don't get any sort of flex from the side plate here. That's something we'll cover in a completely different video, but for discussion's sake now, the aluminum frame. Now this little LFS speed spool, which is arguably one of the best reels at $100, this also does come in a number of different gear ratios, again, as compared to this one only comes in one. I checked up, this one's I think like 4 or 5 years old, this model. The new model they have out there on the Lose website weighs 7.1 ounces. And does have the 9+1 bearing system. So again, all in all, pretty similar to this. Again, the biggest difference, that aluminum frame. Speaking of the frame, how does it compare? Well, it appears they are almost 100% identical. Now, when I looked at them this way, you can see again, very similar. Maybe even the Classic Pro might just be a hair shorter. It's really hard to tell, but again, very, very similar in size. Now you can see when you compare that to something like the SLX, you can see the SLX is a shorter reel. And compared this way, the SLX does seem to be just a slightly narrower reel as well. So just a little bit smaller body on the SLX. Compared to the Bass Pro Shops Pro Qualifier, again, you can see very, very similar in size that way. And compared this way, again, very, very tiny difference. Maybe the Pro Qualifier is just a tad taller, but again, very similar in size there. And compared to a different graphite frame Lose reel, but we'll get to more on this one in a second. So let's discuss what I consider to be the pros and cons of this reel. First, we'll start off with the cons. Number one is you can only get it in 1 gear ratio. So if you want to get a bunch of different ones, tough, you can't. As of right now, only comes in the 7.5 to 1. So not a huge deal. That actually is the most common speed I use, something in the 7 speed. I think it's one of the best all around. You know, some people would argue something in the 6, 6.4 or whatever, but you can still do a ton of stuff with a reel like this. Now, the second con to this reel would be the graphite frame. Now, just because a reel has a graphite frame does not mean it's going to be bad. In the long run, I certainly do think, again, this is a 5-year-old or so reel that I've been using and it still goes strong. Still a smooth reel, doesn't creak, crack, and I've maintained it every year, but in the long run, I think an aluminum frame will last you longer. However, remember how I talked about this reel? This is the Lose LFS Laser Pro. I believe it's exclusive to Bass Pro and Cabela's. Cabela's is where I got this. I think regularly they're $120. I got it on their holiday sale for like $60, so make sure you watch out. Those will be coming up. But this reel has held up very well for the past few years that I've used it. And this past year, I used it only for Texas rigs and jigs, and it still is a good reel. I haven't had any major issues with it. It's a graphite frame and side plates, so I don't know if Lose has done something different like with the graphite that they use, what they make it out of. I've had the same luck with this Lose Mach Crush. This is the black and orange reel that you've seen me and my buddy Randy using over the past couple years, and I've had 0 issues with that reel as well. Now, some of the real cheap graphite Baitcasters that you get, after not too long, they'll develop like a grinding, whining, almost crunchy noise in them. After you've caught a few big fish or, after a few really heavy, hard hook sets, they'll start to get that kind of whiny, crunchy kind of sound to them. The fit and finish on them usually isn't as good. And once you start banging them around and you're heavy on them, you can develop that kind of geary, grindy noise. And to me, they just don't last as long. But again, I have to stress, I have not had any issues with this reel, and I've not had any issues with this guy yet either using it the past few months. So durability is always something, I question on a graphite frame reel. As of now, no problem. I'll keep you updated as we use this more. That's just something to consider and think about. So say, for instance, you're somebody who's picking this reel up for cranking. Not an issue. I've got some 15-pound monofilament on here. You turn the drag down on it and it doesn't matter. You're not going to be putting a ton of force and flex on this when you're using the drag and letting that drag go out like so to fight the fish for you. As opposed to if I have this locked all the way down and I'm using it for frogging and the heaviest, thickest stuff with 65-pound braid, setting that hook and dragging in a whole bunch of, muck and gunk and weeds, that'll put strain on a reel real quick. So maybe if you've got an aluminum frame reel, use that for the frogging. If you end up picking up one of these, use it for cranking with a little bit lighter line, use that drag, and in my opinion, you're going to extend the life of your reel. So now moving over to the pros. Number one, I'm going to say ease of use, and it's relatable. It's a very relatable size. There's nothing really weird and different about this that you have to know about. The side plate comes off easily, one little click. If you're somebody new to Baitcasters, you only have to worry about adjusting this. You don't need to take the side plate off and get inside of there. You've just got to set your spool tension correctly and then use your external brakes to kind of dial that in a little bit better when you're casting. And that's it. So a very simple reel, nothing crazy and wild about it. Now, the second thing I really like about it is it's very comfortable. There's not a lot of, sharp edges here. There's nothing sharp over here. There's no screw here. I absolutely hate that. I've got a couple reels that have a little screw here and they stick out. On this handle side, you can see here on the LFS, there is a screw there, but it's recessed down in. So when you rub your thumb over that, there's not an issue with it. When I'm casting or anything and my fingers touch down here, not an issue. Or if you cast this way, no problem. I do have some reels that have a screw there that sticks out, and it can absolutely ruin the experience for a reel. It's no longer comfortable, and I honestly don't really use it. Now the third pro I'd say to this reel is it's kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none, meaning overall castability on it was pretty good. This is that new combo. I don't know if you've seen this in a video yet, but this little reel casts well. This is that Lew's Classic Pro $59 reel. I'm liking it so far. We'll see. There's one. Finally. Goodness, that took long enough. Not a big dude, but that's a first fish on the night. All right, there we go. First dude of the night. A little over a pound. Nothing big at all, but that's a win. That's our first fish. Some of the higher priced reels I have, I don't think I've ever backlashed with them. Some of the cheaper reels I have were kind of a headache to get dialed in. This was, kind of average. Took a couple casts. I had a little fluff up in the beginning, but dialed it in and haven't had issues with it since. The ergonomics, again, are pretty average. It's not some little tiny, finessey, little small reel, but it's not some big, huge, gargantuan reel. It doesn't have any sort of, crazy handles or differences there. Again, all those things, once you start to bump up for all that, different types of braking systems, handles, all that, you're going to pay more. So you'd expect that, in a reel this size, but still, did I say size? Price is what I meant. But still, all around, it's a pretty decent reel and very similar to the ever popular Lew's LFS speed spool. You can see this thing has been all sorts of beat up and such, but a solid little option there, and this is very similar to that. All right, fishing friends, I have showed you the features of this reel. I compared it to some similar reels in the price range, and I shared what I believe to be some of the pros and cons from using this reel. Now I need help from all of you, so please leave a comment below. Let me know, what are your thoughts on this reel? Have you used this one, or have you used a similar reel? Maybe you've just got questions on this. Comment below with any questions you've got. I will do my personal best to respond below to help you out. Or heck, maybe you'd like to see a comparison video where I put this head to head against a similar reel. Whatever it is, comment below and let me know. I would certainly appreciate the feedback. And finally, tonight's subscribed fishing friend goes to Ranger374. Good dude who's always commenting on my videos. He's actually the one that told me about the jackhammer, said, Debo, you got to get one to test it out. So Ranger, thank you very much for watching all my videos, and thank you to everybody else who watches, comments, subscribes, supports me. I truly do appreciate all of it from all of you. But that's enough yapping for me tonight. It's late. I got to get to bed. So thank you all very much for watching, and until next time.